All right, welcome back to the DNA Pest Control Podcast. Today's episode, we are going to cover day 2 of Pest World 2022 in Boston. We finally have 2 mics, so day 1 was kind of a fun one because we had to keep handing the mic back and forth. So if you heard those pauses, I'm sure it was kind of weird. Aaron, how you doing?
We've got our own mics. I'm feeling great. Thank you.
You finally.
I know.
Finally got it. Okay, awesome. Actually, I guess we should introduce you, huh? Because nobody knows who you are and what you do.
That'd be a good start.
Yeah, let's try it. Go. So who are you?
Okay, my name is Aaron Begornia. I am the sales manager here. I was brought on to run the office and quickly realized that was a horrible decision for me, and going back to Daniel's episode about speaking the truth a couple weeks ago, that really ties into my experience here and sort of the culture that we're trying to build up. I mean, I've been in sales for like almost a decade, and it was very clear from the start, like that's the only direction that I was going to be in long-term here, so it was really great that, you and I were able to have those honest conversations early on before we tried to, keep pushing something that wasn't there. And in the past 3 months of me being the acting sales manager, I've had nothing but, in my opinion, great success and, starting something that this company has never had before. It was kind of a really big endeavor for me that I was almost overwhelmed with at first, but, all the best things kind of have that pressure that comes with it, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, no, I think it was a really good, just seeing it was a good talk at first. Even just pulling that out and saying, hey, but the good thing is a lot of people can hide it. You can't.
No.
So that was the awesome thing. Cause it was like, hey man, how's the office going? You're like, it's all right. When anybody ever tells me all right, instantly it's like, okay, you don't like what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I know it. Like you just like anybody who says it's all right. It's like, okay, dude, you hate your life right now.
Yeah. Yeah. You saw right through it. That's what I appreciated. You confronted me about it, and you were right. I did take it for the steady 8 to 5 salary, all the things that, I actually despise because I love being on commission and love like having that hunger behind my day, to actually create my own day, create my own paycheck. And I didn't have that in the office, and it was just withering me away,
Yeah, no. And a lot of people don't accept that, going back to that episode and that truth. And to be honest with you, even having that talk with you, I had that same talk with Devin.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So before he was in the office, and I essentially called him out on it because he was talking a bunch of crap on technicians. And I eventually, said, hey, well, dude, why don't you become a tech? And so that kind of brought him into like, oh, actually, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't work out in the end, but he was phenomenal. He did a great job. That was everything he needed to do,
mm-hmm.
And he would have, exceeded really well. But no, I think that's, yeah. No. It was all a good talk. I think the transition from the office into the sales, from there, we just started taking off, especially with the more changes that came after that. You were essentially relieved of a lot of the stuff that was holding you back, which then we just took off.
Oh, dude, we're closing a bid at least once a week now.
Yeah, more. Yeah. Actually, once a week.
It's been insane, and we're getting used to it. Like, oh, we know what another bid. Got another bid coming in. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So that's a little bit about Aaron. He's going to be in here with the podcast with us from now on. So get used to his voice, get used to him. We're going to be going over a lot of different things with being a salesman in California. You still have to become a licensed technician. So that's something that you had a hurdle going through, is getting that test taken, studying for it, and now pretty much learning everything on that. On the technician side, you're going to have to kind of go through that curve too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to it. But it's all cool. It's all awesome. It's all part of the experience. And once you have that, it's going to be scary. for everybody else.
Yeah, no, I'm ready. And I don't know why I was so nervous to take that test.
Yeah.
I was so nervous for it. And I studied so hard. And like I was telling you, a lot of the questions they asked were so, were so tech based and not like entomology based where I thought they were going to do it on.
Yeah.
I was really studying like the toxicity and how to read a label and, do's and don'ts. And they completely just didn't go off of the study guide, which ended up working in my favor because I was sitting there cramming all the different kinds of species of ants and, characteristics. So it's great.
Yeah. And the test has changed so much from even when I took it. And they even sent out a whole thing where they were paying people to go in and create more questions.
No way.
Yeah. So they have a pool of like 1,000 questions plus, and then they make your little 150 question test out of that. And so they keep, I think, adding and adding and adding, because when I took it, I had like 3 questions on wolf spiders that were the same. They were just worded different. So weird. I had 3 easy answers, and some of them they would answer another question, and I just went back 50 questions, and I'm like, oop, change that one. So I was good at memorizing those and going back and changing it. So everything has changed since you took it from when I took it. And I'm sure even a year from now, it's going to change again. So, they keep changing that thing.
Yeah, especially here in California.
Yeah, they're going nutty with everything. So, well, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being on again. So day 2, Boston, Pest World. It was fun. I enjoyed Boston actually a lot, surprisingly. Super clean city. And everybody I tell is like, really? Is that clean? It was super clean.
No, it threw me off too.
Dude, I was shocked how clean that city was. So, no bums, no garbage. I don't even remember seeing like any leaves on the ground.
Yeah, no litter. I remember when I was walking around downtown, I started to look for it. Like, where are the homeless people? Because the architecture was like San Francisco. So you assume that there's got to be bums. There's got to be garbage somewhere. It was so clean.
Nothing. So it was, so whoever's living out there, and I know some of you live out there close, awesome city. I enjoyed it. Awesome food. Those who do not live over there and haven't been, I wouldn't even suggest going to visit, just because it's not a good vacation spot. But if you're over there, definitely swing by, because there's a ton of history and the food was great. I enjoyed it. So jumping into the classes. So class 1, I guess I'll start because I have quite a bit to talk about, and I know how you don't have too much.
Sounds good.
So class 1 on day 2 at Pest World was about cockroach baits. This guy, and I'll get his name out there so you can look him up. So Kobe Shaw is a PhD, North Carolina State University. Yeah, right? Yeah, okay. He kind of had a whole idea. So his whole talk was about using baits in sensitive areas. And what they were trying to track is actually bringing down asthma attacks or asthma in kids. So if you didn't know this, and I don't know if you even did, is cockroach fecal matter causes asthma.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so crazy thing. If there is an apartment that is heavily infested and there's a kid born into that, it is most likely that kid will have asthma growing up and have more frequent asthma attacks living in that apartment, and more problems with asthma in general because of the fecal matter of the cockroaches. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. So, and hopefully you'll get to be out there and you'll actually see it. I'm usually pretty strong with people. When I see little kids with cockroaches, I get pretty aggressive with them on what they need to do to clean, to prep. They need to get ready. I don't care if it's in Spanish or English. I am straightforward and I'm very strong with them.
Yeah, as you should be.
Yeah, because I have kids, so I know exactly. Like, dude, you have no idea what you're doing to your kid and the harm this is going to cause in the future. Mm-hmm. And the kid can't control it; the parent can. So I get really aggressive with them. So what he did though is he actually went through. He did an entire study on just baiting in apartment complexes. He did baiting in a zoo, and he kept track of the population count by glue boards. So he kept going out, and then they kept replacing the glue boards, counting how many were on glue boards. In one sensitive area, there was, he had to kind of create his own little trap to be able to put the bait inside. And this was at a zoo. And he dropped the population down to 0 for a couple of months. 0 cockroaches. So 0 outdoor roaches, 0 brown banded roaches. They ended up coming back. The brown banded roaches spiked again. And it was because there was an apartment complex that was infested with brown banded roaches.
Oh, okay.
So if they were able to treat that, they would have actually been able to eliminate them 100% in this area. Now, not saying that's guaranteed for long term, but for the moment, they could have at least gained control. He did this at apartment complexes. He did not actually say how long it took. That's the one thing I didn't like. So, and they don't do that a lot in these studies. They never say, hey, over an 80-day period from day 1 to day 80, we gained 90% control. They leave that out for some reason. I should ask him. I have his email, so I should email him.
Yeah, you should. Just ask him, like, it has to be intentional on why they're leaving it out.
Yeah, well, and it could be because of the length of time it's going to scare a lot of technicians.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
And properties, so if like I go to the one that has bed bugs, but if they were infested with roaches out in Redding, right, it's like, hey, we're going to do this whole program of baiting, but it's going to take 6 months to gain control.
Oh, I see.
They may say, yeah, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, 6
we'll
months.
We'll go
is way
with
too
your
long.
month-and-a-half program than your 6-month program. That's too much. So that could be a big factor in it. So I don't know, but it was really cool to see. So what he did, and actually on the test, because California makes you take a test to get your hours. So on that test, and something that he hit on is there's actually no known immunity to bait. So when a cockroach actually ingests the bait, they cannot get immune to that. So now if you spray the bait or spray the product, they can gain an immunity. But through the bait and what the bait has, the active ingredients in the bait, there is no known cockroach that's actually immune to it. So if you bait and they ingest it, most likely they're going to die. From him saying they will die. If you spray, they may not die.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So, because they can build an immunity to our spray. So that was kind of a cool thing. The other thing is that you're going to learn a lot today.
I am.
So cockroaches will have bait aversion. Bait aversion is the whole idea behind bait aversion is if you ate pizza every day for a month, would you want pizza the second month? Most likely not, right?
Right.
If I only gave you cheese pizza, that's it. No sauces, nothing. You just get cheese pizza, breakfast, lunch, dinner, every day, all day long. You eventually are going to say, I'm good. I'm not going to eat that. Well, cockroaches do the same thing. So if you're using the same bait over and over and over and over, you eventually get bait aversion. So bait aversion is, it's not that they're not going to, they just don't like it. So they're just not even going to eat it. They're just going to go for another source. So then they'll never die. So it's not that bait isn't effective. It's just they're not eating it. So bait's very effective. They just got to get it in their mouth,
Got it.
So kind of interesting. So this guy, from what he's saying, you can gain 100% control, which is kind of cool.
100% is 100%.
Yep. Yeah. So just, I don't know the length of time. So what about you? I know I went on for a little bit longer than I planned, but so what about you? What was your class 1?
No, not a problem. Your class had a lot of good information, even just sitting here talking to you about it. That's crazy,
Yeah, a lot of stuff that guys don't know.
Yeah. On day 2, most important part of success is connection, ways to build impactful relationships. It was a 2-parter done by Denny Noman. She is an executive consultant for Noman and Associates. Great energy. Like everybody that walked in the room immediately was drawn to her. She's great storytelling. There were probably 20 minutes of slides of her grandson that she like haphazardly put together and displayed, and she had no shame. Like, it was awesome. But the content itself was a little repetitive. The basis of it was human connection and sort of the patterns that you're doing on a day-to-day. Like, are you creating those real authentic relationships like in your business and with your clients that are going to be long-term and sustaining, or are you looking at it more of like a transaction? So we went through a lot of different examples, and we had a ton of breakout groups. Like, I think half the class was done in groups, like in group settings. About,
cool.
Like, attention to detail, like how you're listening, especially like from a management perspective, because it was geared towards management, but there was a ton of, sales, techs, and, everybody on the totem pole that was in that class. So,
Oh, nice. Okay.
yeah, I mean, the content was good. I just felt like I took a lot more from some of my other classes, and, the class that you took, right? Just ton of information. Whereas this was talking about patterns and behaviors and just things to think about and take back to your team. So
was it kind of along the lines when it says like relationships or even the patterns and behaviors? We talked a lot about Ray Dalio building, a card on each employee. Was it along those lines or no?
No.
Okay.
Not really.
Okay. So totally different. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
No, and it's fine. And sort of going back to the first day on the customer service one, it was a ton of just self-assessment, right? She was just going into like, are you a good listener? Like, do you know if you're a good listener?
Was it the same person? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So she did that class and these ones.
Correct.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
Correct.
That's cool.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing is, I try to tie everything into sales. Like, what can I take from this class and apply it to my position as the sales manager? And, when you talk about creating relationships, you immediately think of the customer, but it's like, how are you doing that with your team, with your boss, bringing that home even? Like, you're working all day, you're exhausted, get home. It's like, how are you showing up for your family? Because it's all full circle. So, I mean, a lot of good reminders in the class. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Nothing super profound that jumped out, but I think it was a good class just to kind of refresh and get more insight on that.
Yeah, no, I could see that. I could see the importance of the relationships. And, I think we're going to talk about it, right? The culture, or not culture. We were talking about it a little bit before about bringing the right people in, that fit that. Mm-hmm. But you can see that. You can see it when you bring in, when people click and start to click, and those relationships start to intertwine. That's where I think your success skyrockets. So even a little bit about me, I went on a mission to Mexico and everything. And this kind of goes along with those relationships. So there was one guy that me and him, we connected really, really well. And it was kind of funny because everything was based off of, how many people were you teaching and things like that, right? So we were actually in the office all day for a big majority of the day. So we would wake up, we'd go to the office because we were the secretaries then, and we would work in the office. We would go grab lunch, and lunch in Mexico is the biggest meal of the day, which is actually most foreign countries. Is midday is the biggest meal, not dinner like the U.S.
Yeah.
So that was around like 3:00, and then their dinner is at like 7 or 8, but it's a light dinner. It's like bread. That's it, right? So it's like bread and coffee. That's all you eat. But so we wouldn't actually get out to actually teach people until like 4, and we only could be out till about 9. So we had about 5 hours.
Oh, wow.
Where everybody else was out at about 11. So they had almost double the time that we had, but we were more successful than everybody. And a lot of people actually didn't like that. They hated that because they were like, how are you guys doing this? But we clicked. So that relationship, we fed off of each other very well, and we were always having a really good time. It was never just this dreadful experience, and people were drawn to that, and people loved it. Mm-hmm. And so we started bringing so many people in just because they saw that, and it was just a ton of fun. But I can see that. I mean, that makes a lot of sense with the relationships. But, a lot of people don't think about those things either, where it's like, how important is the relationship. They look at, I need a tech to go out and do the job and get it done and get out. Mm-hmm. And most techs even think that, right? Most tech things, I don't care. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to work and go home. Well, dude, newsflash. That's 8 hours of your freaking day, 5 days a week. That's 40 hours a week. That's what is it, a third of your life after you go from sleeping, from work, and then the rest of your time of being up. It's like work is a massive part of your life. You need it. Relationships is going to be a huge part of it.
Yeah. If you're going to choose to make it miserable, that's on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like either make it a good experience, or make it a really crappy one. And then you'll jump and jump and jump and jump and jump and jump and jump.
Yeah.
Which usually happens, actually in this industry, a lot, surprisingly. I've done plenty of interviews and guys will come in and it's like, who did you work for? Every company. And it's like every 6 months they jump to another one and another one. And so it could be a big part of that is relationships. I never even connected that until just now. It's thinking, what was that experience there? And did they actually create, a relationship, with that team, or were they just another person? And eventually they're going to fall off because they don't click with everybody else.
Yeah, it happens.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even look here, we just got on a new office admin. She's been wonderful. But, talking to her about her first and second week, I asked, how's everything going? How you liking the team so far? And she was like, before I even started here, she's actually an apartment manager for one of the properties we service. That before coming here, she's been fantastic. But she hit on the notes of, when I was talking to Daniel, when he was out at the property, he was great. Talking to you in the office, you were really chill. When I came in and saw how you guys work together and with the team, I mean, she basically flat out told me this is a place I want to work until I retire.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
I don't think she said that to me. So.
Oh, you scare her for some reason.
Do I scare her?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I scare a lot of people.
I don't know.
I don't know why. Cause it's funny. Cause I just was talking to JT and I was telling him, I'm like, oh yeah. I yelled at this guy and he's like, I can't see you yelling at anybody. I'm like, no, I can yell at people if I have to, but I'm like, I don't normally, but it's funny. Cause it's like, I scare her, but then I can't see you yelling at her. Well, then how am I scaring? How am I scaring you if I'm not? I don't know, but
yeah, it's a little backwards.
Yeah, it's all right. I got to work on that then. So class 2 for me was the blueprint for growth. So going back a handful of episodes, if you actually remember the guy, his name is Dave Giannetto. I may have murdered that last name, but he is from WorkWave. He's the CEO of WorkWave. So I actually interviewed him on the podcast. And so he was one of the speakers at the class at Pest World. And he talked about, it wasn't really, he went very vague because he was trying to hit whether you're a massive company or a super small company. He just wanted to kind of generalize everything for you. And so what he was kind of going off of, which I actually really enjoyed, was being consistent. And he kept just hitting it really good. And he had really good points is, as technicians, we like to do a lot of different things. As a pest control company, literally everything we can do is so broad. And he said, your $100,000 bird job that you win on a building is not going to get you to grow. It gets you $100,000, but then it stops. And where these, massive companies now have gotten to is everything is based off of a subscription service. That is where the growth is. That is how you fuel, passive income. That's what everybody wants. And so what he was talking about is essentially, and he was just, and there was bird guys there, which was great. And I knew that they were just sinking in their seat as he was hitting this, because there's no residual unless you're selling, the scent packs or you're selling other things. But if you're just doing the work itself, there is no residual on that. It's even with us when we do rodent exclusion. Mm-hmm. rodent care. We got to sign these people up for more. We got to sign them up on pest control. That's why I put so much pressure on it, is because there is no money for a one-time job.
Yeah.
Even with apartment complexes, that we're doing, luckily we're in with, some of the management, and then they're giving us all the specialty services. But the reoccurring is where it's at, because we're easy, we're available, we're there. Because now it's, well, I have a bedbug job. Who am I going to call? Well, the guy who's servicing my building. Unless they suck, then they'll call us, But it's hitting that. So he was talking about consistency is boring, but that's where the money is. And even for technicians, guys, we had a guy leave and he was making up this whole thing. Oh, well, it's the consistency. Well, duh. Anything you do is going to be consistent. And sometimes it is going to be boring unless you can find what actually is fun about it. But that's where the growth comes. That's where everything starts to come in and you start to see that growth.
Yeah.
Even when I took over, this company 4 years ago to where it is now, we're quadruple the size that it was, And so it's just the consistency.
Exactly.
Day in and day out. So that was one really cool thing. And that one, and the other thing is creating processes that he hit on. And we'll create a whole episode on this because I can go off of what he kind of talked about and go really in depth with it. But creating the process for everything, because once you have that process in place, it's done. Sales, right? You have that sales process. When I knocked doors, I had the sales process. I had it from when I was knocking a door to my pitch to how to close them to get the technician out to service. It was step by step, right? So we had that process. And once you create that process, it's really easy. And if it's a new process, you're going to see change. You may not see change on day one, but on day 180, you may see a massive difference. And so he hit on that too. So some of the blueprint for growth that some people don't understand is the consistency key of it. But a lot of people aren't willing to do that because it's boring. I want to do the rodent exclusion job. I don't want to spray this house again because I've already done it for the past 3 years. So that was really cool about it. But I really enjoyed that class. He did do a really good job. And he grew WorkWave from 43 million to now 400 and something million.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So just in a short amount of time, he has a ton of experience prior. So it wasn't he just jumped in as CEO. He was CEO at other places. But he got to bring all of that knowledge with him, and they bought a ton of companies. Mm-hmm. So there was a ton of acquisitions. So I'm sure they have a ton of debt. Yeah. So, but it was really cool to hear that is, some of those things that we think is boring or sucks or, it's over and over and over and over, but you have to do that stuff. You have to have that process. If you don't have that process, you don't have it written down, there is no structure there, you fail. And it's more likely you'll fail. And that's why we see all these little companies spike up and then all those little companies fall off.
Yeah.
Because everything's, I have it in my head. I do it in my head. It's memorized. And then they don't ever have it written down. They don't ever follow anything. And then they drop off. But yeah, he did a really good job. I did enjoy that. And then for our last one, the last class, I don't even remember this last class.
Me neither.
So I'm trying to think. So, and it's a good experience to go back and talk about though, is Pest World. There's going to be some good classes and there's going to be some bad classes. Not every class Aaron took was good. Not every class I took was good. But you do hit some of those classes where the knowledge you gain from it is so much that you're taking 10 steps ahead of everybody else that's in your area who didn't go. I mean, Aaron, like from what you learned, I mean, how much did you actually take away from Pest World, do you think?
A lot more than I thought I would.
Oh, really?
A lot more than I thought I would.
Okay, so you were underestimating this.
I was, especially when we do the next episode about the sales classes, because I've been doing it for so long and I'm always aware that I could be better, but it really blew me away on just some of the stuff that's like right in front of my face. because you were talking about consistency when you're creating that blueprint, right? And setting those processes up.
Yeah.
And for me, my biggest challenge, at least in the past couple of weeks, is how do I get the other sales guy to understand the process or to see it the way I do? Because I've been, a rogue salesman for so long that I've relied on like my skills and, how to read a customer and going through the whole process with follow-up and asking the right questions. And, so I feel very confident, but I'm trying to get over that hump of how do I relay that over to somebody else and teach it so that way they can be able to teach it themselves, because the way I do it, the other sales guys aren't going to do it the same way.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. And it comes back down to personality too.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has their own little, niche in something different, or the way that they do it, how I do it. And I can see that because even with me, it's, we go through scheduling and I'm teaching someone how to do scheduling. How I see it is the correct way, right?
Of course.
And it's not that way. Mm-hmm. And you have to remind yourself, okay, how I do it works, but it works for me. It may not work for them. So I'm going to give them kind of that outline of this is how it works, but I'm not going to teach you everything that I technically know or how I do it, because it's not going to come out the same way.
Right.
Their mannerisms are going to be different, how they're talking to people, their body language, everything's going to be so different. It's not going to come out the same way. Mm-hmm. So it is just kind of giving them, this is how it's done, or this is the knowledge you need to know. Now you got to piece it together and you got to practice it. And you're just helping them here. I'll help you practice.
Yeah.
In a sense, because it is hard.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with sales. Sales is tough because and most people are scared. Most people are terrified of sales.
Which I have to remind myself that, when I'm talking to sales guys, like I love it. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't want to be doing anything else, but majority of people have to get over that hump, that initial, whether it's like confidence or product knowledge or wherever they feel they're lacking, there's something that's really holding them back.
Well, and it goes to, Alex, she was in the office. She's like, I hate sales sucks, blah, 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 blah. But it's just knowledge. It's just education. Mm-hmm. That's it. Sales really isn't, it's not, cold calling's a little different, but like someone who calls the office, it's pretty easy.
Very straightforward.
You're just educating the customer. That's it. You're just telling them, hey, this is what we do. This is how we do it. This is the price. When do you want it done? Mm-hmm. That's all they want to know. But people are terrified. It's so weird. They shy away from those things, even with bids. Most people are so terrified to take that step. We didn't do it. For years, we didn't even step into that realm. And it was because there was so much that we had to do to get started. That initial mountain scared us. It's too much time. Why do it? Is the payout going to even be worth it? Which I look back and I say, I'm so glad we waited till now because we weren't prepared then anyway.
Oh, that makes sense.
Even if we started winning them, there's no way we would have been able to handle it. And the people we had on, it would have never worked. We would have failed. We would have been fired. And who knows if they would have ever given us a chance again. I probably would have had to say, okay, we got to close down. We got to change name, open back up to get those bids again. Because I think they would have said, nope, stamp, done, never again.
Now look at us.
Well, and I think that's why we're winning some of them, is I think companies have already done that.
Oh,
I think these guys are rebidding on some of this stuff and they're done. They've been fired. They're done with them. They don't even want to pick them up again. And we just happen to step in because I think they screw up.
Well, yeah. I do the same thing. If I was Cal Fire, like the entity of Cal Fire, and I'm looking to contract like all my service buildings, and you go to County of Sacramento and they were like, oh no, don't do these guys. They dropped the ball completely. And it's like easy choice. I'm never giving them the time of the day.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So, I see that a lot. Even the one that we picked up, Department of Justice, those people, I don't know if they actually went under, but I think they fired him. He didn't go into detail, but they're no longer there and their contract was not up.
It's a little hush hush.
So, because I was asking a lot of questions, but he didn't really get into detail, but I think they pretty much kicked him. I think they booted him. Yeah. So whatever he was doing, he wasn't doing it right. He wasn't on point. Something happened there and it didn't work out. Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, that comes back down to those procedures, the blueprint, everything you learn, in these classes, in these courses, and there's so much more than just Pest World. They have so many more expos. They have so many more classes that we could take. And I want to get more involved in those because the knowledge that you're getting from these people, and there's so many people out there that have so much knowledge, and they're at an age where they're not worried about competition. They've already made their money. They don't care about you. As harsh as that sounds, you're not anything to them. So they want to share that knowledge now. And they want to give this out for free. Well, I mean, there's a little bit of a cost, but they're willing to tell you all of these things that they've learned in all these years for nothing. And then you can take that and you've essentially just gained 30 years of knowledge instantly.
Just like that.
Yeah. And now you're picking up, and then you got a guy who says, oh, I've been in tech for 10 years. I can start a business. And they have no idea what they're doing because they've never done it. Yeah. And they're not going to the classes. It happens over and over and over. So it's pretty crazy to think about. But, anybody who's not willing to go in and study more, even just as, I always talk about everybody, right? So even if you're just a tech running a route, if you're not willing to go in and study and learn these things, how do you expect to grow in the company you're at? You can't. I mean, even for you, you're a sales manager right now, but what happens when we're doing 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 million? Mm-hmm. It's the position of a sales manager is going to be, there's going to be like 20 of those guys.
Of course.
So where are you going to be then? Are we still educating ourselves and getting better? Or did we stay stagnant and just, no, this is where I want to be? Most guys, they just don't care. They're like, whatever. I'm really good at what I do. Yeah, but you could be better.
Yeah, maybe that scares them.
Well, actually, that's a big one that people talk about, apart from these classes. But it's, people are terrified of failure, but they're more terrified of success. Mm-hmm. Because now what happens when I do gain success? People are going to start leaving. I'm not going to have friends. You're not going to have people around you. You changed. That's a big one.
Yeah.
People are scared of, but I think that is another one, yeah, maybe that's why they don't do it. But I would say from what I've taken from at least day two was one of my favorite. I think day 3 was probably the worst for me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Cause you had a really good day 3. Day 1 was awesome. When it came to technician side, day 2 was half and half when it came to tech and business. Mm-hmm. What did you think on day 1 to day 2?
I like day 2, or I'm sorry, I like day 1 a little bit more, at least for the classes I was taking. Day 1, I had how to make a plan to grow your business and how to execute that plan. Took a lot of good things that I can immediately implement and then kind of do long-term, like 3 months, 6 months, a year or 2, you know what I mean? Just kind of setting those boundaries early on.
Yeah.
Day 2, good content, good people. I didn't get as much, Day 3 was by far my favorite day. That was a sales heavy day and I loved it.
Okay. Before we close, so now this is your first Pest World. Would you do it again?
Absolutely.
Okay. And what would you tell someone who's never been? So if I'm like, Era, I've never been to Pest World, what's something I should be looking out for? What would you tell someone literally who's never been? What do you look for? What to do? What just generalize?
Be a sponge. There's so many classes I could have taken. I was interested in some of the technical classes, but obviously I wanted to do some of the sales ones. And every person that I actually stopped and talked to, whether it was at the expo or in the class, they had some insight or something that I could pull from, right? Because, I've only been here for, 6 months?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I run into people at Pest World that tell me, oh, I started a couple weeks ago, or I'm actually getting ready to sell my business that I've owned for, 20, 30 years. So a ton of perspective, a ton of opportunity just to learn and grow. I love learning and going to these classes, some more than others, but for somebody that has never been to Pest World and is in the pest control industry, you need to go.
Okay.
You need to go. You need to convince, if you're the boss, find a way to make it happen for you and your team. If you're not, talk to your boss about it. There's so much that you can pull from it.
Yeah, when it's in your area, take those 3 days off. It's only afternoons.
True.
Tell them, hey, I'll work a half day and I got to go to these classes. And that's it.
Yeah, I forgot. We had techs showing up, in their actual
uniforms.
In their uniforms, thank you. Yeah, like they just did a route and came to Pest World, like all sweaty, covered, like they just took off their PPE. Yep. But it was cool seeing that. Like they really wanted to grow and learn. So I love seeing stuff like that.
Yeah, and that happens every year. That was huge in Las Vegas. Those classes were packed full of technicians, and there was a ton of trucks in Las Vegas when that was going down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think Boston was a little bit less. We saw a handful, but because we were right in the city, so I think it was kind of hard to get to for a lot of people, because a lot probably do the outskirts of Boston, not main city.
Sure.
Yeah, so anything else we want to add before we close?
No, I think that blueprint was great. One more thing that kind of brought me back to that, I had a sales rep. I was explaining something about taking the step by step and doing the process, and he kept saying to me, "Oh, it's easier said than done. That's easier said than done." And I had to stop him and say, "Literally everything is easier said than done. Do you want it? Do it." And he kind of laughed, but like you said, just really the consistency on that is something that I'm trying to do better on, just for myself and implementing that at the sales team and personal life. So good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, next time he says easier said than done, you can tell him it's actually harder.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you said it, but now your life sucks because you haven't been doing anything.
See?
So it's actually easier done than said, and you should probably just act and just get it done.
There we go.
Yeah. So, and we could talk for hours on that stuff, but guys need to act. True. So that's pretty funny. But thanks for listening to the DNA Pest Control Podcast. Get ready for day 3 of Pest World 2022 in Boston. There's some really good classes that we're going to be covering. A lot of it's over sales. Some of it is over the technical side of things, but overall, very, very good. You can follow us on Instagram at DNA Pest Podcast. You can send an email at dnapestpodcast@gmail.com, or you can visit the website at dnapestpodcast.com. Actually, I think it's DNA Pest. No, DNA. Actually, I don't even know now. Just look at the notes on the bottom of the wherever you're reading it. It's there. But you can message us. You can actually be a guest on. We'd love to have you. If you're listening in and you went to Pest World, message us on Instagram, email, or on the website. I'd love to pick your brain on what classes you guys took and what you took from the expo and the classes all together at Pest World. Thanks again. See ya.